Friends, welcome to the Cat Scrappiness YouTube channel. I'm Kim and I have a super fun card to share with you today. It's a great summer card using the inlaid die cutting technique, or it used to be called the eclipse technique, so I'm excited to share that with you today. If you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, we would love to have you subscribed and click that bell so that every time somebody from the design team uploads a new video, you'll get a notification about that and you can check it out. So I just placed a huge order with Cat Scrappiness. I decided that I deserved a belated birthday / Mother's Day gift from myself. So I placed myself a nice order, and I've had a wish list. I really love this summer gnome stamp set, and I think it's adorable. It's been on my wish list forever. And this is a perfect time to get it. You can also get this Summer Gnome add-on set. Of course, I had to get that. That will be perfect for all kinds of beach scenes, and I can use that in my scrapbooks. We live in an area where there are a lot of beaches, and so I have a lot of photos I can scrapbook with beach scenes. So these stamps will be used a lot in my stamps, in my crafting. I also finally got myself the Uppercase Alpha die set. I pulled out the H, E, L, and O. I just wanted to show you that. I also pulled out my embellishment organizer from Cat Scrappiness because I might want to put some embellishments on this when I'm done. I have pre-cut my cardstock, and in the upper right hand corner I want you to notice that my brushes are all in one of the Cat Scrappiness organizers. You can see I have a very small space to craft in here, and I love this tool organizer because it takes up such a small footprint on my desk. So if I'm not filming, that's in a perfect location, and my tools fit beautifully in there. My tools and some brushes, so everything's right at hand. So I really like it. It's taking up a lot less space on my craft table than what I was using, so that's good. So when you're limited on space, that's a great organizer. And so I'm starting out here. I'm just going to stamp a little beach scene, and I am using my MISTI. I'm actually going to use the magnets. I rarely do that. I kind of just wing it and hope it stays in place, but I decided that I want to create a little scene here, and I definitely, if I have to stamp it more than once, need to make sure I don't end up double stamping. So I'm pulling out the two gnomes. Now, if you don't love gnomes, this stamp set has a ton of images you can use to create a great beach scene without those gnomes in it. I happen to love gnomes, so I have them in my garden. If I see a gnome stamp set anywhere, it goes on my wish list, and I have several of them that I've finally purchased. So I also pulled out the palm tree. Now the palm tree is smaller in scale than the two gnomes are, so I kind of put that up a little bit. I didn't line it up with the two gnomes. I tried to kind of align the two gnomes so they both look like they were in the front of my scene, and that little palm tree I raised up a little bit so it will look like it's behind the gnomes and that it's off in the distance. The surfboard was the same scale as the gnomes, so I kept that down toward the front at a jaunty little angle, like one of the gnomes just stuffed it into the sand. And there are lots of other things you could add to the scene, but I feel like this is enough. I will add some sand and a sky behind them with my distress inks and a few details with my Copic markers. And I am going to go ahead and stamp this with my favorite black ink, and whatever your favorite black ink is that works with the coloring medium you're using. I'm using Copic, so I always need to make sure I'm using a Copic safe ink. And if you don't have alcohol markers, you don't need to purchase alcohol markers to add beautiful color to these outline images like this. You can use colored pencils, you can use watercolors, you can use your ink pads with a paintbrush and a little bit of water. or an aqua pen and a little bit of water. So I went ahead and stamped my little scene. And while I was doing that, I pulled out a piece of masking paper from my stash, and I used the last bit of ink on my stamps and actually stamped that onto that masking paper. So I'm actually going to go ahead and color my 4 stamped images, and then I'm going to also fussy cut out these masks, and I will show you what I'm going to do with them. So here's my little scene all colored in. I kept it simple because I'm going to die cut the word hello out from right on top of those little images that I just went to the trouble to color. So I didn't spend a whole bunch of time making it perfect. Okay, so I just did a really quick and easy coloring. I just wanted there to be some variation in color, and then I fussy cut out those masks, and you can see I'm placing the masks on top. And I wasn't in the mood to fussy cut. I'm not going to lie. I didn't do a perfect job with my masks, and I will show you how I'm going to fix that, because Cat Scrappiness has some great little detail blending brushes. So I will show you those, and I use that to fix any edges around my images that weren't quite perfect. So I did pull out, I kept the brown markers I was using for when I colored things in. I kept those out, and I just took, I think this is E13, and I'm just kind of making some like slashes around these 4 images that I stamped, and kind of like giving myself a line where the beach is going to end, where the sand is going to end and the sky is going to begin. I'm not going to put in any water in the scene. Certainly you could do that if you wanted to, but I just want sand and a sky, and I'm going to keep it very simple. I pulled out antique linen. I'm just kind of going right over that, and I'm going right up to that line that I added with that marker and just filling that in. And I also have tea dye out, and with the same brush, I'm just adding a little bit of that tea dye in, not trying to get a perfect blend. I want you to see some of that yellowy color behind the tea dye color, and I just want to get a kind of almost a variegated look here. I pulled out a different brush to do the sky, and for this one I used tumbled glass, and I apologize that I'm a little out of the scene here, but you can see it all done. I removed my masks at this point, and this is a set of 3 blender brushes, and you'll notice that they're sort of a chisel cut. So there's one end that is sort of pointier than the other end, and then it's got a pretty flat bottom. And I use that little chisel part to just scoot around the edges of my images where I just need to blend in a little bit of extra ink. Like that palm tree, I really wasn't at all careful about fussy cutting. And another way you can fix this, if you don't have these blender brushes, then you can use Q-tips, but you can also take out a paintbrush, add a little water to it, and just use some ink from your ink pad. So I started taping down my letters, and I lined that paper up with my grid mat, and I use this magnetic ruler because that is a magnetic mat I'm using. And then I lined up my letters, left space for the second L, taped them down, and I sent these through my die cutters. So I'm very carefully now removing my tape. This is the Spellbinders Best Ever Craft Tape, and I'm carefully pulling that off. That will remove cardstock or color if you're not careful, so you want to do this very carefully. So slowly remove it, and you can see I'm removing the letters I've already cut out here, and I'm adding that second L in, and I lined up my magnetic ruler again, so that with before I removed those dies, so that I would get that last L straight. I also cut out 3 more of each letter, except for the L's. Since I need 2 L's, I cut out 6 L's from some of the remaining Lagoon blue cardstock I'm using. And you can see that I've cut out a piece of that Lagoon blue to put behind my card front. That is cut out at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So that's going to give me a little bit of that blue around the edges. So there's my water effect. I really like the color of this paper. And now I'm all ready to inlay these letters back in. And one of the things I like to do when I do this technique is I like to actually bulk up each of the letters. So I'm gluing 3 of these letters together, cut out of the same blue I used for the back. You could use white if you want to, but I love the effect. And the more of these you put together, like say you do 5, the more you're going to see that blue behind the letters when you tip them. So I'm just placing that H that I cut from the front of the front colored in panel back in place to make sure I have it right side up, and I'm attaching it now to those 3 H's I glued together. And I'll go ahead and glue this whole thing in. Now there's 4 layers all together there, including the top colored layer, and I'm just sliding it back in place, and I love the way this looks. You can see, like when you tip it, you can see the blue edge. It looks so nice. A lot of times people will pop these up on foam tape, and when you tip it sideways, you can see the foam tape. So this is my solution for not being able to see that. So I did that with all the rest of the letters, and here's another little trick you want to do. I kept that the center of the O, and I'm actually going to put that back in place. And I'm not going to put the layers behind that. This is going to be flat, just like my the card panel itself is flat against that lagoon, that blue lagoon cardstock. So this is going to allow that O to have dimension with that center. And I love the way that looks. I'll just add this to a card base, which I cut at I cut it at 4 1/4. No, I cut it at 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. Scored and folded it at 4 1/4, and I'll add that on with some glue, and that will complete my card. And I will put links to these products below, because how fun is that card? The hello is very subtle, but when a person is holding it in their hand, tipping it sideways, they can see that little blue around the edges of each letter, because I gave it lots of fun dimension, and I think it's a very fun way to do the cards. Now you'll also notice when I did the sand, I took like 3 different colors of alcohol marker that were close to the sand colors. I used E13, E11, and E35, and I just put a bunch of dots. I stippled, and I did darker dots around the images and the back hills, and lighter dots as I came forward. So that gave my sand some texture. And I didn't get fussy about it or anything like that. You can get as fussy as you want, but since I was die cutting over the top of it, I didn't worry about making my coloring perfect this time. I have nice ink blending in there, and I love the way the card turned out. I think it's very fun. And someone that I send this to, some beach lover, is going to love this card. So I feel like it's really fun. And think of all the ways you could use this technique, even without doing a scene in the background, just on maybe an alcohol ink background, or on some of those gel press backgrounds you might have made, or just some pretty patterned paper. Scrappiness has a ton of pretty patterned paper that would be beautiful if you did this technique with those papers. So there you go, friends. I hope you like that. I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope you have a spectacular day.